Greetings, Otaku Faithful. Thank you for joining me again this week. Once again, it's Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief, and I'm here to bring you all yet again another Legends of Tomorrow episode review right here on Otaku Assemble Weekly. And as always, here to bring you the latest in this week's Legend of Tomorrow episode review. And this is my review of Season 1, Episode 10, entitled Progeny. Now, general thoughts on this week's episode. Certainly not a bad episode, with the exception of the Kendra-Ray relationship, which I've already stated in my previous review I don't really care much for. I actually didn't find a single problem with this episode. However, I do have some reservations. Some scenes I thought were misplaced and others I thought were underdeveloped, and I'll go into more detail about that later in this review. So first, let's kick things off talking about what I think worked really well in this episode. All of the scenes with Mick I thought worked the best in this episode. I think they gave us some character moments we really needed, and I like how we got different perspectives from some of the other characters in their interactions with Mick, you know, with Rip, Sara, and then finally Snart. My only concern about Mick's storyline in this episode was the way it ended. Now, we learned by the end of the episode that apparently a new adversary has been introduced into the series. These are the Hunters. Apparently, they're a group of mercenaries that are employed by the Time Masters, and their mission is to take out Rip and the team. Now, Mick shares this information with the rest of the team because he views them as a mutual enemy between him and the rest of the team. My only concern is whether or not Mick's engagement with the team moving forward, if this is supposed to be his sort of, I'm concerned that it's too abrupt of a resolution. We know that him and Snart pretty much had it out with each other, but I don't find it very convincing if all it took was one fist fight with Snart to completely resolve all the issues that Mick has with the rest of the team. So the idea that they do have this mutual threat, that sort of making Mick reluctantly work with the team again, that I think works. But if this is some sort of like, okay, I had my issues with you, now I've kind of gotten it out of my system and now we can move forward, I think it's too soon. And I think it's too abrupt of a resolution. So we'll find out how that plays out in the following episode. Hopefully, as I mentioned before, hopefully Mick's whole sort of getting back, in the fold with the rest of the team takes a little bit longer than just one fist fight. Next, I want to talk about the Kendra flashbacks. I actually have mixed feelings on those. Here's the thing. Number one, I think the flashbacks were really well done. I love the way they were shot. I love the dialogue in them. I think they were really well done, and I think they do add some necessary development for Kendra's character. The problem is, though, I think they're misplaced. I think we should have gotten these flashbacks episodes ago. Honestly and truly, I think we should have gotten these closer towards the beginning of the season. It seems like we're only getting them now because it has to play into the whole Kendra-Ray relationship. As I mentioned before, that relationship isn't working to begin with, so throwing this in there just to create more conflict for her and Ray, it's not working. It's not working. Whereas, if we had gotten these flashbacks earlier in the season, or even slowly throughout the first half of the season, if these flashbacks were evidence that Kendra is slowly starting to recall the memories of her past lives, and that in turn that is helping her gain more of her powers, which has already been hinted to earlier in this series when Carter, if memory serves, Carter did tell her, the more of your memories you remember, the more power you will access. So if that was the case, we should have gotten these much earlier in the season, especially since these are the memories from her previous life, the one right before her current incarnation. So once again, I do think the flashbacks were really well done. I just think they were misplaced in the season. Now I'm going to go into the one disappointment I found with the episode, and that was pretty much the main plot for this episode. So this week we travel to the future. It's the farthest in the future the team has gone so far, and apparently this is the one period in time right before Savage, gets this huge surge of power. And it has to do with this kid that we learn within 5 years' time is going to become this huge dictator, and he's pretty much going to be the precursor for what will become Savage's empire, what will become his tyrannical system. Okay, here's the thing though. If that was the case, oh, and then keep this in mind too. This kid is Savage's progeny. He is his pupil, his disciple, his apprentice. If that is the case, where I think that whole premise is fantastic. I love the idea. But if that's the case, then they really should have spent more time actually developing this kid into a character and less of a plot device. In the episode, he's used strictly as a plot device. Okay, this kid becomes a dictator. This dictator sets up the system that Savage is going to take over. We just need to completely nuke that out and take out the kid right here and now. Once again, even the plan, I did not mind it if we spent more time with the kid, if we got more inside his head, if we learned more about him, more about, we know where he comes from, we know who his father is, this, that, and the other. There isn't even a single scene where the kid is on screen together with his dad until the end of the episode. We don't get a private conversation between them. We don't get a private conversation between him, his dad, and Savage. So once again, the kid was used as a plot device rather than making him a character in his own right. And because of that, I think that was such a huge missed opportunity. That was so underdeveloped. And it's an ingenious idea. This was an idea I could have seen them stretching out for 3, 4, 5 episodes. This kid could have even been a supporting antagonist for the rest of the season. Or at least so long as they decide to stay within that time period. But yeah, that would be the only real thing. Once again, it wasn't bad. What we got wasn't bad, but it certainly wasn't as good as it could have been. It could have been so much more, so much more interesting. Especially when you take in consideration this. The one thing I think that the series hasn't really explored enough with Vandal Savage, we've only got this in one episode, is his power of influence, his ability to influence people around him. Here's the thing. Vandal Savage as a character, him in the comics, him in Justice League, the animated series, even in some of the, even in Justice League Doom, the one thing about Savage that is the most consistent about him throughout most of his interpretations and most of the times that he's written, he has 4 main things going for it. Well, 5 main things going for him, really. Number 1, he's immortal. That's the biggest. Number 2, he's rich. That's the second. Number 3, he's a genius. Number 4, he's a master martial artist. He's a master combatant because he's lived through so many different wars and whatnot. But the final thing, and I think it's one of his best, what makes him so formidable is his power of influence. We are talking about a man who in the series we're told can sway world leaders. He can sway kings and emperors, the people who are in control of nations. He has the ability to bring them into his fold. We haven't really seen that. The only episode we've ever seen anything like that was the episode where he was the cult leader. And that was just common folk. That wasn't anyone who was actually, a king, or in this episode, corporate giant. So that I bring that up because if they were ever going to really explore that side of Vandal Savage, this would have been the episode to do it. Why? Because we're dealing with a young protege that he has. And so yeah, it's real easy to go ahead and write it as, oh, this is the supervillain that has the impressionable child as a student and as a protege. But more so than that, it's not just an impressionable child, the heir of a corporate empire, especially in this future where corporations are in charge of countries. More so than ever, I think we should have seen that side of Savage. And once again, I think it was underdeveloped. It wasn't fleshed out the way that it should have been. So yeah, that was a tad bit of a letdown. That's going to wrap up this week's Legends of Tomorrow episode review. I want to thank you all for joining me again this week. And in the comments below, please leave your thoughts on this episode. Also leave any thoughts you might have about my review. Please feel free. Start the discussion in the comments below. If you like this video, please thumb it up. Share it with other fans of the show and people you think would enjoy my reviews. And if you have yet to do so, subscribe to the OAW YouTube channel. Annotation is above head. So join me tomorrow for my Vikings episode review, and join me this weekend as discussion of the week and top 5 video segments will be returning to OAW. If you have yet to do so, please leave suggestions and vote up for your favorite topic for discussion of the week and for top 5 in the comment section of my update video. Annotation for the update video will actually be probably over here. Yeah. So, with that being said, this has been Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief. I'm signing off, and until next time, peace.